The rain came down hard that night. Not the soft Pacific Northwest drizzle that locals barely noticed anymore, but a real storm, the kind that bent the cedar trees along the cul-de-sac and turned the gutters into rushing streams. Daniel Carter stood at the kitchen sink, washing the last of the dinner dishes by hand, the way he always did, listening to the muffled sound of Emily's cartoon playing from upstairs, then the eventual silence that meant she had finally fallen asleep. He dried his hands on the dish towel hanging from the oven handle, clicked off the kitchen light, and stood for a moment in the dark, just standing, just breathing, letting the day drain out of him before he climbed the stairs to check on her one last time. He had the routine down to muscle memory. Check the back door, turn the porch light off, lay Emily's school clothes out for the morning, set his alarm for 5:45. He did all of it without thinking, without feeling much of anything, which was exactly how he preferred his evenings. Quiet, predictable, safe. He was halfway up the stairs when the knocking started. Not a polite knock, not the kind a neighbor made when they needed to borrow something or had a package delivered by mistake. This was frantic, desperate, the kind of sound that bypassed every rational thought and hit somewhere older, somewhere primal. Daniel turned on the stairs and came back down, his hand automatically reaching for the baseball bat he kept in the narrow closet beside the front door. He did not grab it. Something in the sound made him leave it where it was. He moved to the peephole instead. He could not see clearly at first. The porch light was off. The rain was sheeting across the small overhang above the door, and all he could make out was a shape, a person hunched, arms wrapped around themselves. He turned the porch light on and looked again. Victoria Hayes. He knew her face, the way anyone knew the face of a neighbor they had never actually spoken to, from a distance, from the driveway, from the occasional brief eye contact that neither of them had ever followed up with words. She lived 4 houses down. He had seen her getting into a black car that appeared most mornings before 7. He had seen deliveries arrive at her door, large unmarked crates that her front door swallowed without explanation. He had seen the look on her face when she moved through the world, composed, armored already somewhere else. That woman was not standing at his door right now. The woman at his door was soaking wet. Her dark hair was plastered to the sides of her face. Her mascara had tracked in thin lines down both cheeks. She was wearing a blazer expensive, even through the rain, and it was torn at the shoulder. Her hands were pressed flat against his door, as though she were trying to hold herself upright. He opened it. She looked at him for 1 second. The kind of look that sizes a person up, that measures whether they can be trusted, and then she grabbed the front of his shirt with both hands. Her knuckles were white. "Please hide me." Her voice was barely a sound. "They're trying to destroy me." Daniel opened his mouth, closed it. His brain was cycling through explanations, through every reasonable interpretation of what was happening on his front porch at 11:15 on a Thursday night. He found none, and then he saw the headlights. They swept across the front of his house in a slow, deliberate arc. The kind of movement that said, whoever was driving was not in a hurry, was not lost, was not simply turning around. A black SUV with tinted windows had rolled to a stop at the far end of his driveway. Its engine idled. Its lights stayed on. If you have ever believed that the world is fundamentally fair, that good people are watched over, that innocence is its own protection, this story may ask you to reconsider. Daniel Carter did not think of himself as a brave man. He thought of himself as a practical one. He pulled Victoria Hayes across his threshold by the arm, shut the door behind her, and turned off the porch light again without a word. He did not turn on this hallway light. He moved through his own house in the dark the way he had done 10,000 times, and he led her through the kitchen and to the door of the storage room at the back of the house. The small windowless room that held shelves of holiday decorations, an old air mattress, and several boxes of Sarah's things he had never been able to bring himself to donate. He pulled the chain on the single overhead bulb and gestured for her to step inside. She did. He pulled the door nearly closed and stood listening. 20 seconds later, the knocking came at the front door. It was calm, evenly spaced, the knock of someone who had done this before and was not concerned about the outcome. Daniel walked to the door. He looked through the peephole and saw a man, large, mid-40s, dark jacket, close-cropped hair, an earpiece visible at his left ear. The man was standing slightly to the side of the door, rather than directly in front of it, and that positioning told Daniel more than anything else could have. He opened the door. He kept his body in the gap. "Can I help you?" His voice came out even. He was surprised by that. The man looked at him. His expression was professionally neutral. "Did a woman come to this house in the last few minutes? Dark hair, blue blazer." "Not that I saw," Daniel said. "Why, what happened?" The man looked past him, not at Daniel, past him into the space of the house, as though trying to see through walls by will alone. The pause stretched to 3 seconds, then 4. "Neighborhood concern," the man said. He held out a business card. Daniel took it. There was a name on it and a phone number and nothing else. No company, no title. "Of course," Daniel said. The man held his gaze for 2 more seconds. Then he turned and walked back down the porch steps. He did not get back into the SUV immediately. He stood beside it looking up and down the street, and then he got in. The engine idled. The lights stayed on for another full minute before the vehicle finally moved. Daniel stood in the dark hallway until the sound of the engine faded completely. Then he went upstairs. Emily was awake. She was sitting at the top of the stairs with her knees pulled to her chest, holding a stuffed dog named Franklin that had been her most important companion since the age of 4. Her eyes were very large. "Dad, who was that?" "Someone who was lost," he said, sitting beside her, wrapping an arm around her small shoulders. "Go back to bed, Bug." She looked at him with an expression that was, as it so often was, too perceptive for 10 years old. "You're lying," she said. He kissed the top of her head. "Go to bed." He waited until she was back under her covers, and then he went to the storage room. Victoria Hayes was sitting on the floor between the boxes, her knees drawn up, her arms wrapped around them, shaking. Not from cold, he thought, but from something that had been building in her for a long time before tonight. He crouched down across from her in the flat, unflattering light. "He's gone," Daniel said. "For now. Do you want to tell me what just happened?" She looked up at him. With the mascara streaked and the blazer torn and the careful armor of her daily presentation completely washed away, she looked exhausted in a way that went far beyond one bad night. "I don't know where to start," she said. "Start anywhere," he said. Daniel Carter had not always been the kind of man who could sit in a storage room at midnight with a trembling stranger and project calm he did not fully feel. That version of him had been assembled slowly out of necessity over the 5 years since Sarah died. They had met in college, married young, built a life together in the unhurried way of 2 people who believed they had time. Emily had come when they were both 32, and the years after were something lit from the inside, richer, full of a kind of ordinary joy that Daniel had not understood the